The space station trembled under the impact of another explosion, sending a chorus of alarms echoing through its metallic corridors. Amidst the chaos, Jack Harper sprinted toward the control room, his mind racing with potential solutions to the unfolding disaster. The station, home to a myriad of species, was under siege from an unknown alien force. Bursting into the control room, Jack found Captain Thaler barking orders at a flurry of frantic officers. The captain, a towering figure with scales glistening in the dim light, turned to Jack, his eyes filled with a mixture of doubt and desperation. "We need solutions, Harper," Thaler growled. "This station won't hold much longer." Jack nodded, his resolve hardening. "I have an idea, but it's risky. We need to retrofit the station's shield systems with my new energy dispersion algorithm. It's untested, but it's our best shot." Dr. Selena Vorn, a scientist renowned for her work in xenobiology, stepped forward. Her calm demeanor belied the urgency of the situation. "We don't have many options, Captain. Jack's plan might be our only chance." Thaler's gaze shifted between Jack and Dr. Vorn before he finally relented. "All right, Harper, get to it." Jack's hands flew over the control panel as he relayed instructions to his team. Memories of his father, a hero who sacrificed himself in a past galactic war, flashed through his mind. Jack had inherited his father's ingenuity and determination, traits that drove him now to prevent another tragedy. Companion Zeta appeared on the monitor, her digital features composed and analytical. "Jack, I've rerouted power to the shield emitters. Ready for your algorithm." Jack allowed himself a brief smile. "Good work, Zeta. Let's hope this works." As Jack worked, the bond between him and Thaler began to form. Thaler's skepticism slowly gave way to a grudging respect, evident in his occasional nods of approval. Dr. Vorn, too, offered insights and support, her scientific acumen proving invaluable in adapting the algorithm to the station's unique systems. Just as they made significant progress, a sudden jolt threw Jack against the console. Lights flickered, and a warning klaxon blared. "What now?" Thaler demanded, steadying himself. Zeta's voice cut through the din. "Sabotage detected in the power grid. Someone is trying to undermine our efforts." Jack's mind raced. "We need to isolate the breach and reroute power manually. Thaler, can you handle security?" Thaler nodded sharply. "Consider it done." Jack and Dr. Vorn sprinted toward the engineering bay, their path illuminated by the station's emergency lights. As they worked to bypass the sabotage circuits, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that their time was running out. The alien fleet was relentless, and the station's defenses were crumbling. With sweat dripping from his brow, Jack connected the final circuit. "That should do it. Let's get back to the control room." As they raced back, the station shuddered again, a deafening roar reverberating through its structure. They burst into the control room just in time to see the shield status flickering between operational and failure. "We did it," Jack said, breathless. "But we're not out of the woods yet." Thaler clapped a hand on Jack's shoulder. "One step at a time, Harper. We're counting on you." The control room buzzed with tension as Jack Harper worked tirelessly at the command console. The station's survival hinged on their ability to adapt, but now they faced a new threat from within. Sabotage had brought them to the brink, and the alien fleet loomed closer with each passing second. Captain Thaler's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Report, Harper." Jack's fingers flew over the keyboard. "We've isolated the breach, but the power grid is still unstable. We need to identify the saboteur before they strike again." Thaler nodded, his eyes narrowing. "Security teams are on it, but we can't afford any more disruptions." Dr. Selena Vorn approached, her expression serious. "Jack, we need to secure the auxiliary power units. If the saboteur targets them, we'll lose our last line of defense." Jack turned to his AI companion, Zeta. "Monitor all access points to the power units. Alert us to any suspicious activity." "Understood, Jack," Zeta replied, her digital form flickering on the screen. As they left the control room, Jack and Dr. Vorn moved quickly through the dimly lit corridors of the space station. Jack couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the weight of suspicion heavy on his shoulders. "Selena, any ideas on who could be behind this?" Jack asked, his voice low. Dr. Vorn shook her head. It could be anyone. There are factions within the council that aren't happy with our approach. And there's always the possibility of an alien sympathizer. Jack sighed. Great, just what we need, a traitor among us. They reached the auxiliary power units, where Thaler was already coordinating with his security team. We've set up a perimeter, but we need to be ready for anything, Thaler said, his voice grim. Jack nodded, his mind racing with contingency plans. Let's get to work. As they began securing the power units, Jack noticed a slight flicker in the lights. His heart raced as he checked the readouts. Someone's trying to access the system remotely. They're here. Thaler barked orders into his communicator. All teams, lock down the area. No one gets in or out without my authorization. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the corridor, sending debris flying. Jack shielded his eyes from the blast, his ears ringing. When the dust settled, he saw Thaler pulling a wounded officer to safety. Jack, we need to find that saboteur now, Thaler shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Jack scanned the area, his eyes landing on a shadowy figure slipping through a maintenance hatch. There, he pointed, sprinting after the figure with Thaler and Dr. Vorn close behind. They followed the saboteur through a maze of maintenance tunnels, the narrow passages echoing with their footsteps. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline fueling his every move. The figure ahead moved with calculated precision, clearly familiar with the station's layout. As they rounded a corner, the saboteur turned and fired a blaster, the shot narrowly missing Jack. Thaler returned fire, forcing the figure to retreat deeper into the tunnels. We can't let them get away, Dr. Vorn panted, determination etched on her face. Jack nodded, pushing himself harder. They emerged into a larger chamber, where the saboteur was cornered against a bulkhead. The figure pulled off their hood, revealing a familiar face, one of the station's engineers, Elise. Why, Elise? Jack demanded, breathless. Why betray us? Elise's eyes flashed with defiance. You don't understand. This station is doomed, and so are we. But I have a way out. Before Jack could respond, Elise pressed a button on her wrist device. A blinding light filled the chamber, and she vanished, leaving them in stunned silence. We're running out of time, Thaler muttered. And now we have no idea what she's planning next. Jack stared at the spot where Elise had stood, his mind racing with questions. The alien fleet was still advancing, and now they had a rogue engineer with unknown motives. The stakes had never been higher. The control room was a hive of frenetic activity as the crew worked to stabilize the station's systems. Jack Harper stood at the central console, his mind racing to piece together a plan that could save them all. The saboteur, Elise, had vanished, leaving behind a trail of uncertainty and fear. Jack, we can't sustain another hit like that, Captain Thaler said, his voice grim. We need a plan, and fast. Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the data on the screens. I've identified a potential weakness in the alien weapon's energy matrix. If we can exploit it, we might be able to neutralize their advantage. Dr. Selena Vorn stepped forward, her brow furrowed. What do you need? Jack's fingers flew over the console. We need to reroute all available power to the main deflector array. If we time it right, we can create a feedback loop that will disrupt their weapon. Thaler's eyes narrowed. That sounds like it could blow us up if we get it wrong. That's a risk we have to take, Jack replied, determination etched on his face. Zeta, initiate the power transfer sequence and monitor the energy levels closely. Understood, Jack, Zeta responded, her digital interface glowing on the screen. As the crew worked tirelessly to implement Jack's plan, the bonds between them grew stronger. Thaler's initial skepticism had transformed into a solid trust in Jack's abilities, and Dr. Vorn's unwavering support highlighted the strength of their alliance. Jack, I've been thinking, Thaler said, his voice softer. You remind me of someone I used to know, someone who never gave up, no matter the odds. Jack glanced at Thaler, seeing a flicker of vulnerability in the captain's eyes. Who was that? My brother, Thaler replied, his gaze distant. He sacrificed everything to save our people. I see that same fire in you. Jack nodded, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. I won't let you down, Captain. As they finalized the adjustments, A sudden alert blared through the control room. Incoming transmission from the alien fleet, Zeta announced. The main screen flickered, revealing the imposing figure of the alien commander. "Surrender now, and we will spare your lives," the commander declared, his voice cold and unyielding. Thaler stepped forward, his posture defiant. "We will not surrender. We will fight to the last breath." The transmission cut off, and Jack's heart pounded in his chest. "Zeta, how long until the feedback loop is ready?" "Approximately 5 minutes," Zeta replied. "We need to buy some time," Dr. Vorn said, her voice tense. "If Elise is still on the station, she might try to sabotage us again." Thaler nodded. "Security teams, be on high alert. We can't afford any more setbacks." As the tension in the control room reached a boiling point, Jack's mind raced with contingency plans. Every second counted, and the fate of the station hung in the balance. Suddenly, the lights flickered and the station shuddered. "What now?" Thaler growled, frustration evident in his voice. "Another power surge," Jack muttered, his fingers dancing over the console. "But this one's different. It's coming from inside the station." "Elise," Dr. Vorn whispered, fear flashing in her eyes. Before they could react, the control room door slid open, and Elise stepped in, a determined look on her face. "Stop right there." Thaler barked, drawing his weapon. Elise raised her hands, a small device clutched tightly. "You don't understand. I'm trying to save us all." "By sabotaging our efforts?" Jack snapped, stepping forward. "What are you planning, Elise?" She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Jack's. "The feedback loop, it won't work. The aliens have a countermeasure, but I have a way to disrupt their control systems directly." Jack hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. "Why should we trust you?" Elise's eyes were resolute. "Because I have nothing left to lose. This is our only chance." The control room fell silent as Jack weighed his options. The clock was ticking, and the alien fleet was closing in. The fate of the station and possibly the entire galaxy depended on their next move. The control room was suffused with an electric tension as Jack Harper faced Elise. Her revelation about the alien countermeasure had thrown their plans into disarray. The alien fleet was moments away from launching their final assault, and the fate of the station rested on a razor's edge. "All right, Elise," Jack said, his voice steady but urgent. "Explain your plan." Elise stepped forward, holding up the device. "This disruptor can interfere with the aliens' control systems. It's risky and untested, but it's our best shot." Captain Thaler lowered his weapon slightly, his eyes still wary. "How do we know this isn't another trick?" Elise met Thaler's gaze, her expression resolute. "I know I've given you no reason to trust me, but I swear on everything I have left, I'm doing this to save us." Dr. Selena Vorn, standing by Jack's side, nodded. "We don't have much choice. If this works, it could turn the tide in our favor." Jack took a deep breath. "Let's do it. Thaler, get your teams ready. We need to protect Elise while she sets up the disruptor." As they moved through the corridors to the main reactor, Jack couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for Elise. Her desperation mirrored his own in many ways. Both had lost so much and were willing to risk everything for a chance at redemption. "Elise," Jack said quietly as they walked, "why did you turn against us?" She looked at him, pain evident in her eyes. "I thought the aliens offered a way out, a chance to save myself. But I was wrong. I see that now." Jack nodded, his respect for her honesty growing. "We all make mistakes. What matters now is fixing them." They reached the reactor room, where Thaler's security teams had secured the area. Elise quickly began setting up the disruptor, her hands moving with practiced precision. Just as Elise finished calibrating the disruptor, an alarm blared. "They're here," Zeta announced, her voice echoing through the control room. The walls shook as the alien fleet commenced their bombardment. Jack and Thaler exchanged a grim look. "We need to hold them off until the disruptor is activated," Thaler said. Jack nodded, his jaw set. "Let's give them hell." The next few minutes were a blur of chaos and battle. Thaler's teams fought valiantly, repelling wave after wave of alien drones that had infiltrated the station. Jack focused on protecting Elise, his engineering skills proving just as valuable in combat as they were in the workshop. Finally, Elise looked up from her work. "It's ready." Jack activated his communicator. "Zeta, initiate the disruptor sequence, now." The station's lights flickered as the disruptor powered up. A low hum resonated through the walls, growing in intensity. Outside, the alien ships began to waver, their formation breaking as the disruptor took effect. "It's working!" Dr. Vorn shouted, her voice filled with hope. But just as victory seemed within reach, a massive explosion rocked the station. Jack was thrown to the ground, his vision blurring. When he looked up, he saw Elise lying unconscious, debris scattered around her. "Elise?" Jack crawled to her side, checking for a pulse. She was alive, but barely. He turned to Thaler. "We need to get her to the med bay." Thaler nodded, his expression grim. "Go, we'll hold the line here." Jack lifted Elise, carrying her through the damaged corridors as the station continued to shake. Dr. Vorn followed, providing medical assistance as they went. They reached the med bay, where a team of doctors quickly took over. Jack slumped against the wall, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm him. But there was no time to rest. He returned to the control room, where Thaler was directing the final stages of their defense. "We did it, Harper," Thaler said, clapping Jack on the shoulder. "The disruptor worked. The alien fleet is retreating." A cheer rose from the remaining crew, their relief palpable. Jack allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, but the cost had been high. As the celebrations began, Zeta's voice cut through the jubilation. "Jack, you need to see this." Jack hurried to the main console, his heart sinking as he saw the readings. "What is it, Zeta?" "The disruptor caused a feedback loop in the reactor core," Zeta explained. "We have less than an hour before it goes critical." Jack's mind raced. They had saved the station from the alien threat, but now they faced a new, imminent danger. "We need to evacuate, now." The crew scrambled to prepare for evacuation, the tension mounting once again. As Jack led the efforts to save everyone on board, he couldn't shake the feeling that their trials were far from over.